On the night of our 25th wedding anniversary, my husband handed me divorce papers. Not flowers, not a toast, but a pre-printed stack of documents with my name in bold right there, in front of more than 100 guests. 25 years is enough, Elena, he declared into the microphone, voice clear and proud. I want someone younger. And you should be out of the apartment by tomorrow. The entire ballroom fell silent. The music stopped. Only the faint clinking of crystal glasses trembled through the air. I stood beside the banquet table, wearing the silver silk dress he had picked out himself. Across the room, Lorraine, my mother-in-law, sat upright, lips curved in a faint smile. The chandelier light reflected in her eyes cold, metallic. People began to whisper. Someone turned to look at me the way people look at a car crash they can't stop watching. I could hear my own heartbeat slow, steady, unnervingly calm. I had imagined this night 1,000 times, a quiet, warm celebration of endurance. Instead, it had become a public execution of a marriage. Victor, the man who once held my trembling hands at the altar of St. James, now read his farewell speech like he was closing a business deal. He spoke of change, of fresh starts, of freedom. Freedom from me, the woman who had worked beside him to pay every debt, who built a life with him in the apartment my parents had given us. He didn't mention that part, but I remembered. That apartment will need to be transferred, Victor added, his tone brisk, businesslike. I think we should handle this with dignity. Dignity. He had just divorced me over a microphone. Lorraine nodded approvingly. She knew. She'd known all along. Not one person came to my defense. No gasp, no protest. Only the sharp sound of a glass hitting the floor and the bitter smell of champagne. I should have cried, but I didn't. I was far beyond the age of crying over betrayal. What I felt wasn't pain, it was absolute clarity. I stepped toward the stage, my heels clicking like a metronome counting down the seconds. Victor froze. He forced a smile. Elena, you don't have to. I took the microphone from his hand. You're right, I said evenly. 25 years is enough to see who's really been standing beside you, and who's just been waiting for the chance to betray you. The room went silent again. Someone dropped a fork. Lorraine cleared her throat, her gaze darting away. I looked straight at Victor. You said I need to leave the apartment? You must have forgotten. It was my parents who bought it, not you. And I never signed a single document transferring it to your name. His face drained of color. For the first time, the confident, untouchable man looked small, caught off guard in front of his audience. I gave him a thin smile. If you want to start over, go ahead. But next time, learn to leave quietly, without turning your wife into your party's entertainment. I placed the microphone back on the table. A ripple of whispers spread through the room, followed by the sound of someone exhaling sharply. Victor gripped his glass, his hand trembling. Lorraine tried to smile again, but her eyes betrayed irritation. I turned and walked away from the stage. No one stopped me. No one dared touch the woman who'd just been humiliated and yet still walked with her spine straight through a forest of stairs. As I passed, I heard a woman whisper, "She's so strong." Number. I wasn't strong. I was awake, because in that moment I knew this was only the surface. No man announces a divorce that publicly without preparation. Lorraine knew. Their lawyer probably did too. And if they had the confidence to do this in front of everyone, it meant there was something worse hiding beneath it. When I stepped outside, the wind off Lake Michigan hit my face like ice. The city glowed in gold and glass. Inside, the music resumed. The party went on, as if I had never existed. I got into a taxi. The driver looked at me in the mirror. "You okay, ma'am?" "I am," I said quietly. I just finally saw who I've really been living with. When I got home, I removed my silver earrings and set them beside the anniversary card Victor had written. Time for a change. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I laughed, a dry, brittle laugh, the kind that tastes like metal. He was right. Change was coming, but not the kind he expected. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window overlooking the lake. The waves shimmered under the city lights, like hundreds of watching eyes. I took a deep breath. Only one thought filled my mind. If he wants to turn this marriage into a game, then I'll be the one rewriting the rules. That night, I didn't sleep. Victor came home late drunk, collapsing on the bed. He didn't remember what he'd said, or pretended not to. I lay beside him, listening to the rhythmic snore of a stranger. The scent of unfamiliar perfume still lingered, sweet, expensive, foreign. I turned slightly, studying him in the dark. This man once held my hand through every hard season. Now he was just a stranger, lying in my bed. No tears, no rage, just a single steady promise forming in my mind. Tomorrow, I start counting. Not the years of love, but the evidence of betrayal. I closed my eyes and smiled faintly, because one thing had never been clearer. They thought they had broken me, but what they had really done was wake up the woman they could no longer control. That night, hours before the anniversary party, I didn't sleep. Not because I was hurt, but because in my head, every piece was starting to click into place like numbers on a balance sheet. A man doesn't announce a divorce in front of 100 people out of impulse. Number. He plans it. And behind Lorraine's elegant smile, I knew there was another hand one pulling the strings. At 3 a.m., I heard voices from the living room. Victor's voice. I stayed perfectly still, breathing slow, pretending to sleep. His tone was low, but every word was clear. "We have to do it right, Mom." "She won't suspect a thing. After the ceremony, everything will be signed." Then Lorraine's voice, soft but sharp, like silk over a blade. "Don't waver, Victor. Say nothing more. Let her walk straight into the trap." My heartbeat slowed, each thump heavy, deliberate. A plan, and not just for a divorce, for the apartment, the inheritance, everything. I heard the creak of floorboards, then silence. Victor came back to bed, the faint scent of Le Labo Rose 31 perfume still clinging to his shirt, the same fragrance I'd smelled at the party. He thought I didn't notice, but I did. By morning, he was suddenly sweet again. He made me coffee, kissed my cheek, and called me the most incredible woman in his life. I looked at him and smiled back politely, but inside, I was a mirror flat, still, and crystal clear. He had no idea I'd heard everything. "Elena," he said, all cheerful, "why don't we check out restaurants for the celebration today?" "Sure," I replied softly. "You choose." "I trust you." 2 words he'd never notice I'd weaponized. I trust you. He left the house soon after, adjusting his tie, humming. He forgot his phone on the nightstand. The screen lit up. 11 a.m., call TT. I stared at that single letter. No one named Tom's worked at his office, and in his drawer, I'd once seen that same perfume Rose 31. Expensive, feminine, foreign. I walked to the window. Victor was stepping into his black sedan, playing the part of the perfect husband on his way to betray me in daylight. The phone sat there, pulsing with light. A part of me wanted to open it. Another part said, "Not yet." So I waited. I observed. I made myself tea and stood by the window, watching the gray light over Lake Michigan. 25 years of marriage played like static in my mind. 2 parallel lines that had run together but never touched. We met at Loyola University. He studied business, I studied accounting. He talked, I listened. We married for love, but we stayed married out of habit. When my parents died, I inherited this apartment in Gold Coast, the one Lorraine had once sneered about. It really shouldn't be under your name, dear. Back then, I'd laughed it off. Now I realized some words are not opinions. They're predictions. A knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. Lorraine stood there, wrapped in beige wool, lips painted red like she'd stepped out of a talk show. "My dear," she cooed, "just checking on you. Don't be too hard on Victor. Men can be impulsive." I gestured for her to sit. "Mint tea, Mother?" "Lovely," she said, glancing around. "I'd forgotten how quaint this apartment was when you first married." Her tone turned quaint into cheap. I stayed silent. "Elena," she continued smoothly, "you and Victor are both in your 50s now. If you won't have children, you should at least make arrangements for the family's future." "Family?" I asked. "You mean your grandsons?" "Of course. They deserve a future too." I looked at her for a long time. She wasn't asking for the grandchildren. She was circling the property. "Where do you keep the apartment papers, dear?" "In case anything ever needs updating?" "In the safe," I replied slowly. "Why?" "Oh, no reason. You never know what can happen." Her words sliced clean through my calm. After she left, I sat on the sofa, the tea gone cold in my hands. Lorraine never spoke without purpose. She always hid her knives in velvet. Now I was certain. They had a plan, and my only chance of survival was to move first. I opened Victor's laptop. He never changed his passwords. First, I tried 1998, the year we met, number. Then 2005, the year we bought the place. Still no. Then I remembered he did everything backward, so I typed 2006-0501. Our wedding date, reversed. The screen unlocked. Browsing history. How to keep the apartment in a divorce. Property division advantages husband. Attorney Randall Keene, Chicago. How to get a wife to sign voluntary transfer papers. I didn't feel shock, only confirmation. Every clue aligned. The late night whispers, the morning sweetness, the fake anniversary. The trap was real. The phone rang, slicing through the silence. Candace, my best friend. "Elena, are you home?" "Yes, why?" "I just saw Victor on Oak Street, at the jewelry store, with a young blonde, maybe 30. They were looking at rings. I gripped my teacup so tight the tea spilled over." "You're sure?" "Positive. He kissed her outside." Silence. "Elena, are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said evenly, "thank you." I hung up. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, slow, almost kind. Inside, a storm was building. That afternoon, Victor came home carrying roses and a box of chocolates, for the love of my life. I looked at the flowers, then at him, and smiled faintly. "What's next, Victor?" "What do you mean?" "Just wondering. About our future. Let's not ruin the mood. We'll talk after the party." After the party. 2 words light as air, heavy as warning. I placed the roses in a vase, their scent mixed with the perfume still clinging to his suit. I stood before the window, my reflection faint on the glass. The woman staring back was no longer soft. She was preparing, not for revenge, but for survival through truth. I picked up his phone. The screen glowed. Enter 6-digit passcode. I tried 090919998, the day we met. Number. Then, June 10th, 2006, our wedding day. Number. Then, Candace's voice echoed in my head. She's about 30. I tried. March 8th, International Women's Day. It unlocked. The screen flared bright, and at that moment, I knew I had just opened the door to another world. A world where betrayal was not an accident, but an operation. I remember that morning with perfect clarity. The sky over Chicago was the color of dull lead, light slicing coldly through the window, and the mint tea in my hand let off a thin, winding ribbon of steam, curling like my thoughts. Victor had already left early. He'd left a note on the counter. Gone to see Mom. Dinner will be late. Those 3 words, see Mom, sent a chill straight through me. His phone sat on the table, still unlocked. A text glowed on the screen, half read, half hidden. Don't worry, after the anniversary, everything will be ours. Mom handled it with keen. I read it twice, 3 times, every punctuation mark like a nail in wood. No emotion, no shaking, just cold focus. Mom handled it with keen. So Lorraine didn't just know. She was the architect. The doorbell rang, sharp and metallic. I didn't have to look through the peephole to know who it was. Lorraine stood there, wrapped in a beige cashmere coat, an emerald scarf at her neck, a basket of apple pie in hand, like a woman playing the role of a doting mother-in-law. "Good morning, dear," she said sweetly. I brought Victor's favorite apple pie. I opened the door. She entered slowly, her gaze sweeping over every inch of the apartment. 17th floor, overlooking Lake Michigan, white walls, minimalist furniture, everything neat, spotless. People said I was a perfectionist. I wasn't. I was simply used to control. She set the basket on the table, slipped off her gloves. "You didn't come by yesterday," she said, tone casual. "Victor said you weren't feeling well." "I needed rest," I replied. "Of course," she smiled faintly. "After 25 years, who wouldn't be tired?" Her smile didn't touch her eyes. I poured her tea. "Mint okay?" "As long as you didn't poison it," she joked, laughing softly to herself. I didn't laugh. "You know, dear," she continued, stirring her cup, "men at Victor's age, they get restless. You shouldn't blame him. They just need to feel young again." "And to feel young," I said quietly, "they need to take their wife's home away." The cup froze halfway to her lips. For a moment, the polished mask slipped. "I don't know what you mean," she said evenly. "Oh, I think you do." Silence. Outside, the wind howled faintly against the glass. A train horn wailed somewhere in the distance. Lorraine took a slow sip of tea, then tilted her head. "Elena, I only want to help. The deed to this apartment, it was in your name, yes, but Victor has rights too. You two should handle things early, avoid complications." "The papers are safe," I said calmly. "You don't have to worry." "I just thought, if you had a copy somewhere, it might be wise. You never know what can happen." Her tone was smooth, rehearsed. If I hadn't known her for 25 years, I might have believed it. But Lorraine never prepared for accidents. She engineered them. She stood, walking to the framed wedding photo on the wall, brushing a gloved finger across the glass. 25 years, she murmured. "Time flies. I only hope you two end things gracefully. No need for drama." "Gracefully?" I echoed. "How do you define that, Mother?" "When a woman knows when to let go." I smiled, just a little. She didn't know that her words had just given me the reason I'd never let go. When she left, her perfume Chanel No. 5 lingered like smoke. I sat motionless, eyes on the teacup gone cold. Mint leaves floated silently, spinning in slow circles, just like my mind, revolving around their plan. I reopened Victor's laptop. He still hadn't changed the password. The browsing history had grown longer. How to claim assets when the wife owns property pre-marriage. Consult Randall Keene, divorce strategy for husbands. Evidence required to reassign marital property. He was building a file, and I finally understood. The one thing he needed was my signature. He couldn't take the apartment without it. The anniversary wasn't a celebration. It was an ambush to make me sign publicly, under the illusion of goodwill. My phone buzzed. A message from Candace. "Elena, we need to talk. I just saw Victor at Oak Street Jewelry with that same blonde woman." What were they doing? Shopping for rings, She was wearing a bracelet. I swear it's Lorraine's. It all came together. The mistress, the mother, the lawyer. A full triangle of betrayal. They wanted my apartment, my assets, my silence. I leaned back in my chair. No tears, no rage. Only the stillness that comes before a storm. I opened the drawer and pulled out an old note from my father. The one he'd written when I started working as an accountant. Don't trust words. Trust documents. Every truth leaves a signature. I stared at the paper until the ink seemed to breathe. Then I knew exactly what I had to do. That afternoon, I went to see Priya Shah, an old college friend, now a family attorney. Her office was on the 12th floor of a red brick building in River North. She looked up as I walked in, surprised. Elena! My God, it's been ages. What's wrong? I sat down and opened Victor's laptop, sliding it toward her. Read this. She scanned the screen, frowning deeper with every line. They're setting you up, she said quietly, but you're unnervingly calm. Because I don't trust people anymore. Only structure. Structure? The structure of truth. I won't react. I'll document. Priya gave a small, approving smile. Classic accountant. So what's the plan? I exhaled. Silence. Collect evidence. Move funds. And prove the apartment was mine before the marriage. She jotted quick notes. Screenshot all texts. Record the 3 a.m. call if possible. Retrieve purchase record of apartment. Bank statements. As I stood to leave, she called after me. Elena, if they're working with Randall Keene, be careful. He's known for manipulating clients into signing everything. I'm not signing a thing, I said evenly, because now they're the ones being watched. That evening, Victor was on the phone in the living room, his voice softened when I entered. Who was that? I asked. Just work. New project. You're very dedicated. I walked to the kitchen and quietly picked up his phone. Still the same passcode, 030820. The screen unlocked. A new message blinked from Tessa. Don't forget to thank Mom. She made everything go smoother than I expected. Mom, not her mom, Lorraine. I took a photo of the message and locked the screen. Outside, the wind off the lake rattled the window panes. Victor slept soundly, his breathing heavy, oblivious. I watched him for a long time. Whatever love I'd had for him was gone, burned clean away. All that remained was focus, sharp and cold. They thought I was just a middle-aged woman abandoned by her husband. They had no idea. I'd been an accountant my entire life, and I had never lost track of a single number. The next afternoon, rain settled over Chicago. Not hard, just persistent, clinging to the windows like sentences left unfinished. I sat in my car and watched umbrellas slide along the Michigan Avenue sidewalk. Everyone had a destination. I was looking for an exit with structure. I had an appointment with Priya Shah, my college friend, now a well-known family attorney in River North. She'd once been an optimist who loved sunflowers and vanilla lattes. Today, I needed her as a realist, the kind who can read a verdict before it's written. Her office was on the 12th floor, glass walls looking down on a river of stalled cars. When I walked in, Priya stood, eyes bright with surprise and worry. Elena? How long has it been? Are you okay? I need a consult, and it has to be absolutely private. She nodded, pulled out a chair. No small talk. People who work with broken marriages know silence is often more reliable than stories. I opened my laptop and set it in front of her. Read this. She skimmed the screenshots of text, the 3 a.m. call, the short audio I'd managed to capture when Lorraine asked about the apartment papers. Lorraine's voice was clear. If there's a copy of the documents, it'd be more convenient for Victor. Priya leaned back, quiet for a few seconds. Elena, they're staging the whole thing. And you're still this calm? I was an accountant. When numbers don't match, you don't cry, you reconcile. Their math is wrong. She gave a small, worried smile. Tell me everything. I did. The midnight call, Lorraine, the blonde woman, the anniversary that was really an execution. Priya listened without interrupting, just taking notes. Then she put her pen down and met my eyes. Elena, good news and bad news. Good. If this apartment is premarital property, they can't touch it. Bad. If Victor's name was added to the deed, they can argue for a share. I need to prove it's separate property, I said evenly. My parents paid for it. They wired the funds directly to the broker. I still have the paperwork. Priya nodded. Great. Step 1. Find the original real estate attorney who handled the purchase. He can attest to the source of funds. I remember his name, George Perry. Perfect. Step 2. Protect finances. Move money out of joint accounts, and don't tip them off. I already did. She glanced up, surprised. How much? Half the balance. He's withdrawn $30,000 this month for gifts and lawyers. I took my share. Fair. She smiled faintly. You're very clear-headed, but they won't stop. Lorraine isn't the type to accept defeat. I know. And they think I'm weak. That's my advantage. She studied me for a long beat. Elena, remember this. When a man and his mother team up, they don't just want to leave. They want to erase you. Don't react. Prepare. When you speak, bring documents. I understand. Truth has structure, like a balance sheet. It doesn't know how to lie. When I left the office, the rain hadn't stopped. In the lobby, I paused before a full-length mirror. It reflected a woman in a black coat, hard eyes, pressed lips. No longer someone's wife, just Elena Morales, relearning how to protect herself. That evening, Victor came home late. He wore the now familiar perfume, the same scent I'd seen named in text with Tessa. I've been slammed, he said, shrugging off his coat. New project's driving me crazy. I can see that, I murmured. You've been working Sundays. He blinked, then forced a laugh. Have to. Can't survive in this city otherwise. I stepped closer, looked him straight in the eye. Have you thought about revising your will, Victor? He frowned. What are you talking about? Just asking. Lorraine suggested I think about the boy's future. He laughed too loudly. Mom meddles. Ignore her. But his hand trembled, just slightly. The identical twin of an error cell flashing in the spreadsheet. See it once, and you know the system has a hole. When he went to shower, I opened my laptop. The documents folder held a string of new PDFs. Prenup reassessment, Hayes and Keene Law, asset split draft.pdf, event guest list, the Westin Hotel. I stopped at the last line. So it was never about celebration. He'd booked the Westin not to honor a marriage, but to camouflage a divorce scripted weeks in advance. The lights, the microphone, even the invitations, props for his performance. In reality, every guest was a witness to a contract already staged. I stared at asset split draft, a chill running down my spine. Not surprise confirmation. The suspicions in my head had finally formed a diagram, a scheme designed like a flawless balance sheet. The next morning, I went to see George Perry, the old real estate lawyer who'd helped my parents buy this apartment. His ground floor office was old but orderly, walls lined with paper-thick files. He looked up and smiled. Elena Morales! Long time. Gold Coast treating you well? It is, sir. But I need a confirmation. I told him everything, brief, exact. He nodded, slow, then rummaged in a steel cabinet and pulled out a yellowed file. Here, 2003. Funds were wired from Mr. and Mrs. Morales. It's recorded as a gift deed. Victor's name was added 2 months after closing. My heartbeat found its old cadence, the click-click of a calculator doing correct sums. So that means separate property, legally yours. In a divorce, he can't claim it. I can draft a notarized statement. I'll need copies as soon as possible. Come back in the morning, I'll have them. When I stepped outside, the rain had broken. Sun flashed on the wet sidewalk. For the first time in days, I felt brightness, not joy, certainty. Back home, Victor sat at the dining table, restless. Where were you all day? Taking care of a few things. What things? The kind a wife prepares when her husband is preparing to betray her. He shot to his feet, voice sharp. What are you talking about? You know exactly, Victor. He stood still then, eyes wary, and suddenly his tone softened. Elena, let's not make this complicated. After the event, we'll talk properly. Yes, after the event, I echoed, smiling a little. Of course. I walked to my office. In the drawer, I placed the newly stamped packet Perry had prepared. On top sat the statement for my new account, in my name, mine alone. I shut the drawer. Everything was in place. That night, I opened the window. Lake air pushed cool and mineral into the room. In the parking lot below, sepia light spilled over Victor as he spoke into his phone. Everything's fine. After the speech, she'll sign. Mom, I told you Keen will be waiting at the paperwork table. I stood in the dark, watching the man who'd spent 25 years beside me. In a few days, he believed he would win. He didn't know. I had already rewritten the formula of the game. That afternoon, Chicago was blazing gold, but cold as metal. The wind from the lake scraped against the glass towers, drumming on my windows like a clock counting down to a storm. I sat on the wooden chair out on the balcony. In front of me lay a sealed, folder proof of ownership, Perry's affidavit, the new bank statements, and a USB holding every incriminating file from Victor's laptop. I didn't know if I was shivering from the wind or the adrenaline, but every sense in me was alert. Something was going to happen tonight. I could feel it. My phone buzzed, a message from Priya. Filed the affidavit with the court. The apartment is officially protected now, but be careful, they'll react. React. The word echoed like a warning bell in my head. Just as I set the phone down, I heard the door slam. Victor was home. He wasn't carrying his briefcase, only a thick envelope tucked inside his coat pocket. You're still here, he said, his voice low, faintly surprised. I thought you went to your mother's. I'm still in my own home, I said. Why would I leave? He looked around the room like he was checking for witnesses. You met with Perry today, didn't you? How do you know? He called Keen. You're making this harder for yourself. I stayed seated, my hands resting calmly on the folder. I'm not making anything hard. I'm just clarifying the truth. Elena, listen. No, Victor, you listen. I stood and walked toward him slowly. My voice was steady, precise, the way I used to sound in board meetings. You and your mother built the perfect little play. The lights, the guests, the microphones, all props to hide a property split. But you forgot one thing. What you sign can't be erased. And what I save, you can't deny. His face froze, calm cracking in the fear. What are you talking about? The files on your laptop. Asset split draft, event guest list, the Westin Hotel, and your text with Tessa. The air in the room turned thick. He stepped closer, breath quickening. You had no right to invade my privacy. And you had no right to erase my life. For the first time in 25 years, I saw his real eyes, cold, calculating, stripped of every trace of the man who once held my hand in the rain. He sat down, gave a thin smile. You think that evidence means anything? You don't understand the law. My mother has everything handled. I don't need to understand it, I said. I just need to prove it. Truth has structure, Victor. And your structure has holes. He went quiet. The silence was so dense I could hear the wind whistle through the door frame. Then he said, softly, "Elena, I don't want to do this, but my mother has a stake in this apartment. She paid for renovations, and my name's on the insurance. You can't keep it forever. You call stealing an investment?" "Everyone has a price," he said, leaning forward. "What's yours?" I didn't answer. I just looked at him. And in that moment, I understood. Our marriage wasn't a mistake. It was a crime, planned to perfection. When he left, the door slammed so hard the frames on the wall rattled. I stood there for a long breath, then walked back out onto the balcony. From here, I could see the lake. The reflection of streetlights trembled across the water like broken code lines on a dark screen. I called Priya. "They know. Victor will move sooner than we thought. Elena, listen to me," she said quickly. "If he or his mother shows up, don't be alone. I'll send someone over." "No, I want to see what they do when they think I'm weak." I hung up. The plan had already begun to take shape. I would let them cross the line. Then I'd expose every inch of it. At around 10 p.m., the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Lorraine. I opened the door, silent. She stepped in, wrapped in the long coat, an envelope identical to Victor's in hand. "I came to speak privately," she said, voice smooth as silk, "between two women." "You mean between a thief and her target? Watch your tone. I once treated you like a daughter. And I once treated you like a mother. But you sold that role, remember?" She set the envelope on the table. "This is the final agreement. If you sign, I'll let you keep a small portion of your savings. If not, I'll make sure you lose everything." I opened the envelope. Inside was the property division draft with Victor's signature, my line left blank. At the bottom, Keene's law firm logo. The same document I'd already found on the laptop. I placed it down carefully and looked up. Whose pen should I use, Lorraine? Keene's or Tessa's? Her eyes flickered, a half-second break in her mask, enough to glimpse the fear behind it. "You have no idea who you're up against." "No," I said calmly. "I know exactly who I'm up against. A woman who believes power can be bought with a last name." She leaned in close, whispering, "You have no evidence. And if you try, Victor will accuse you of forgery. The police will believe him." I smiled, nodded once. "Oh, I know who they'll believe. The one with the recording." I tapped the phone lying on the table. From its small speaker came her voice, clear and undeniable. "If you sign, I'll let you keep a small portion." Her face drained of color. "You recorded me?" "No, I just let the truth speak for itself." "You always said words have power." She stepped back, breath shallow. "You'll regret this." "No, I'm just rebalancing the books. Every negative has to be offset by a positive." She turned sharply and stormed out, her hand trembling as she closed the door behind her. When her footsteps faded, I sat back down and replayed the clip. Then I saved it under a new file name, porchconfession.mp3. An hour later, my phone rang. "Victor. Mom just got home. What did you say to her?" "I just reminded her that truth can be backed up." "Elena, don't do anything stupid." "Stupid," I said softly, "was thinking I was still afraid of you." I hung up. That night I backed up everything to the cloud. The recordings, the deeds, the screenshots. Each file named after an accounting principle. Balance, equity, liability, proof. By the time the clock struck 2 a.m., I stepped out onto the balcony once more. The city slept. The light shimmered on the surface of the lake. I thought of Lorraine, of Victor, of the hands that once held mine before pushing me down. Now it was my turn to bring the light back exactly where it belonged. The next morning, Chicago looked glazed with a thin sheet of ice. The world felt unnaturally quiet. No cars, no wind, just the faint tick from the radiator in the living room. I sat at the dining table and replayed last night's recording. Lorraine's voice came through crisp, cold, as if she were still in the room. If you sign, I'll let you keep a small amount in your personal account. If you don't, I'll make sure you lose everything. I listened 3 times. No shaking, no tears. Only a hard confirmation. This evidence would bring them down. Priya called right on cue. I heard it. Crystal clear, Elena. This isn't a civil dispute anymore. This is coercion to sign a contract. If I file it with the court right now, what happens? We can get an emergency order to freeze any moves on your assets. But be careful. People like Lorraine don't lose gracefully. I smiled. I'm waiting for them to come. My door is always open. That afternoon, there were 3 sharp knocks at my door. I opened it. A big man in a long coat stood there, an envelope in hand. Miss Morales? Yes. I'm hired to serve a notice. From Attorney Randall Keene. I signed. The envelope was cold, thick, and smelled faintly of cigarettes. Inside, the first page screamed in bold, Notice of intent to file for injunction, Morales v. Davis. I read every line. Keene accused me of unlawfully accessing Victor's data, making illegal recordings, and attempting extortion. A neat inversion of the truth. At the bottom, the tidy, smug signature, Randall T. Keene, Esquire. I looked up. The courier lingered, eyes evasive. Did he tell you to say anything else? Yes. He said, tell her the game is over. The game is over. I laughed. Tell him, it's just begun. I shut the door and stood in the dark. What I held wasn't a threat. It was proof of who they really were. That evening, I drove to Priya's. The cold misted the windshield. City lights wavered in jittery gold. When I walked in, she was bent over her desk, laptop open, a stack of papers beside it. You need to see this. On her screen, an email from Keene to the bank's representative. If Ms. Morales contacts you, please temporarily suspend access to her accounts. Re-verification protocol pending. Priya tapped the line. They're trying to freeze your money, and they can only do it if they fake certain documents. Which documents? A power of attorney signature. I leaned back. Victor can't get my genuine signature. Every formal record I sign is in blue ink, not black. Exactly, Priya said, eyes lighting. If they submit a black and white copy, I can show the forgery from the scanned ink bleed. I looked at her, a cold pride rising. They're confident because they think I'll fold. They don't know I've worked with source documents for 30 years. Nothing slips past a data trail. Around 9 p.m., I got back to the apartment. The hallway lights clicked off one by one, leaving only the green glow of the elevator panel on the wall. My door was ajar. I knew I'd locked it. My heartbeat slowed. I pushed it open. Chanel number 5. Lorraine. She sat on the sofa with a cup of cold tea. I hate waiting, Elena, but it seems you enjoy tempting fate. My door isn't open to fate, Mother, only to the truth. She set the cup down, eyes bright under the lamp. You think I'm afraid of that silly recording? Randall will handle it. You'll look like a hysterical wife inventing stories after being scorned. If so, why come here yourself? A beat of silence. Her lips tightened. I came to negotiate. Negotiate what? You take $50,000 and vacate this apartment within 72 hours. If not, I'll make everyone believe you're unwell. And trust me, I've done it before. The last sentence froze the room. Before, I asked, a woman named Clara Jennings. She was an accountant at Victor's company. Tried to expose an insurance matter. She lives in a psychiatric facility in Milwaukee now, and her files were never found. I stood still. The details snapped into place. Victor's earlier $30,000 transfer, the company's name, and now Clara. I understood. This wasn't family scheming anymore. It was a system, a scam with routine. "Thank you, Mother," I said evenly. "Now I have the name of your previous victim. Don't make yourself the next." She rose and put on her coat. "You have 72 hours. After that, nothing here will be yours." I listened to her heels recede down the hall cold, even, a countdown in clicks. I didn't sleep. All night I reorganized every file from porchconfession.mp3 to westondraft.pdf. I opened an old photo of Victor. The frame bore a tiny inscription, 25 years of trust. I laughed softly. Trust, yes. Sometimes it's just the space between two signatures. Near dawn, a text popped up from an unknown number. "If you don't want to end up like Clara, meet me. 8 a.m., North Pier." No name, no image, just a black shadow on white. I didn't know who it was, Lorraine, Victor, or Keen. But there was only one way to end this. Walk straight into the den. 8 a.m. North Pier was so cold the breath turned to fog. I wore a long coat and walked slowly. Waves slapped the wooden pilings. The air smelled of salt and machine oil. A man stood waiting. Not Victor. Not Keen. The courier. He pulled a small USB from his pocket. "Mrs. Lorraine told me to give you this. You should watch it." "Why?" "Because I don't want to be around for a second accident." He left. I held the USB, small, freezing, heavy as a verdict. Back home, I plugged it in. One file appeared, JenningsFootage.mov. Grainy footage, an office, a middle-aged woman, Clara Jennings, arguing with Victor. "You can't do this, Victor! That insurance money is for patients, not for you and your mother." "Clara, calm down. My mother only." "I already sent the statements to the police." The camera jolted, then black. A final cut, Clara being dragged out by two men. I paused the video, fingers clenched around the mouse. Lorraine had told the truth and handed me the evidence to destroy her. I forwarded everything to Priya with a single line. "We're not talking about marriage anymore. This is federal insurance fraud." By afternoon, Priya called back, voice rough with shock. "Elena, the FBI needs to be involved. Clara isn't crazy. She was institutionalized after submitting evidence. They silenced her. You just reopened the case." "Good. It's time people see who they really are." "What are you going to do?" "Wait for them to come. The most terrified person isn't the accused. It's the one who knows the evidence is in the other party's hands." I looked out the window. The city moved as if nothing had happened. But I knew. Beneath that calm surface, a collapse had already started its countdown. Morning broke over Chicago, wrapped in fog. The sky was a pale blur, the city still enough that I could hear the kitchen clock ticking. I brewed a cup of coffee, watching the steam rise like unspoken thoughts. On the table, the USB drive still sat, small but heavy enough to tilt the scales of an entire family. I opened the window. The wind from Lake Michigan came sharp and salty. Across the street, Lorraine's black Mercedes was parked in the same spot. Empty, motionless, a patient shadow. The phone rang. Priya. "Elena, the FBI received the video. They're authenticating the source. But you need to keep everything exactly where it is. No touching, no moving." "Understood. And one more thing. Did you talk to Victor last night?" "No, but he'll know soon. Everything he's hiding is inside that study." I walked down the hall toward the wooden door at the end. Victor's study, the one I'd been forbidden to enter for years because it was too messy. The electronic lock blinked green. He hadn't changed the code. I typed in 0803. International Women's Day. A soft click. The door opened. The room was dark, lit only by a slit of window light. On the desk sat a laptop, a printer, a steel filing cabinet, and our dusty wedding photo. I turned on the lamp. The golden light spilled across neatly stacked papers, too neat. Pinned to the wall was a corkboard full of notes, bank codes, company names, and a line scrawled in black ink. Jennings, 2017, settled. I touched the words. The ink was faded, but the handwriting firm. Not a financial note. A tombstone. I opened the laptop. Password, Lakeview 25. Predictable. The desktop revealed 4 main folders: house docs, clients, LJ Insurances, personal. I opened LJ Insurances. Inside, dozens of files named after victims. Jennings_transfer.pdf, more_claim.docx, Santos_payout.xls. Every single one carried the same digital signature: Lorraine Davis. Each file was a perfect replica of structured truth, but this time, the structure of organized crime. I took screenshots and sent them to Priya through an encrypted email. You're looking at what Clara discovered before she disappeared. A minute later, Priya called back, voice trembling. Elena, the FBI's sending agents over. Get out of that room. Don't touch anything else. No, I'll stay. They need to see exactly how we worked. The elevator chimed. I looked through the window, Lorraine stepping out, Victor behind her. I had less than 3 minutes. I hit record on my phone. The door unlocked. Victor froze when he saw me sitting in his chair. What are you doing in here? Just organizing my husband's paperwork. This is my private workspace. No. This is a crime scene. He stepped closer, trying to steady his voice. You don't understand, Elena. These documents, they're just contracts. Company business, nothing to do with you. Then why does every name belong to someone dead or institutionalized? He hesitated. Just a flicker, but enough. Then he laughed, dry and sharp. You're insane. Maybe. But the only crazy person about to face an arrest warrant is you. Lorraine entered the doorway. Elena, stop before it's too late. Too late for whom, Mother? For the mothers who lost children because you falsified insurance claims? Her smile vanished. You don't have legal proof. Wrong. I lifted my phone. Everything's already been sent to the FBI, the lawyers, and the press. Both froze. Victor lunged for the phone, but I stepped back. Go ahead. Break it. The originals are in the cloud, with Clara's video. For the first time, Lorraine's breath shook. You don't know what you've unleashed. I do. And this time, the consequences will be filed properly. 3 solid knocks. Victor straightened, trying to mask the panic. Who is it? A man's voice from outside. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Open the door. I didn't move. Lorraine's eyes darted toward the window. Victor turned pale. Elena, what did you do? I just sent the truth where it belongs. The door opened. 2 agents stepped in. 1 man, 1 woman, black coats, gold badges gleaming under the lamp. Mrs. Morales? Yes. We're here to seize all devices and documents related to LJ Insurance and the transfers authorized by Lorraine Davis. I pointed to the desk. Everything's here, and so are they. The agents turned to Victor and Lorraine. Mr. and Mrs. Davis, please cooperate. You have the right to remain silent. Lorraine's lips trembled. You'll regret this, Elena. You don't know what's been set in motion. Oh, Mother, I said softly. Once the truth starts running, no one can stop it. The agents began sealing the files. The steel cabinet was locked with yellow tape. Priya arrived minutes later, trench coat soaked with mist, eyes bright with exhaustion. "You okay?" "Yes, just empty." That's what survival feels like after dismantling a system built on lies. I looked around the room, Victor's once sacred workspace. Now it smelled of printer ink and dust. The wedding photo lay face down on the desk. A shard of broken glass reflected my face, not the betrayed wife, but the keeper of proof. As they led Victor and Lorraine out, I followed to the door. Victor turned back. "You destroyed everything." "No," I said. "I just balanced the books." That afternoon, Priya and I returned to gather the last of my things. On the bookshelf, I found a thick leather-bound notebook embossed with small letters, L.J. Legacy. I opened it. Inside Lorraine's handwritten notes, victim lists, payment schedules, and one final line. "If anyone betrays us, activate File 2, K." I froze. K. Keen? Or someone else? Priya's expression tightened. "We're not done, Elena." "I know." I closed the notebook and slipped it into my bag. But this time, I'm not afraid. Outside, Lake Michigan shimmered like a sheet of silver glass. Everything in me went still, and for the first time, I felt light, because finally, the truth was exactly where it belonged. The next morning, Chicago was sealed in fog so dense it felt like silence had weight. I sat in my car, headlights cutting through the gray, the skyline melting into the lake. Lake Michigan shimmered like cold steel. On the passenger seat lay the brown leather notebook, L.J. Legacy, zipped inside an evidence pouch. I hadn't opened it again. Every page, I knew, was a door leading to another crime. Priya called. "FBI wants to see you today. They've mirrored everything from the apartment, but there's one thing only you can decode: Lorraine's accounting structure." "Where and when?" "Federal Building, 14th floor. Lead agent's name is Monroe." I nodded, though she couldn't see it. Today, my story wasn't about marriage anymore. It was a federal case. The FBI headquarters stood on Dearborn Street, flanked by towers of glass and concrete. As I passed through security, the scanner beeped sharply, cold and precise. A young agent escorted me down a corridor, humming with the low sounds of printers and caffeine. The air smelled of metal, paper, and the tension of truth being rewritten. Room 1407 was small, gray walls, white light. At the head of the table sat Agent Monroe, mid-40s, square-jawed, calm voice. Beside him was a woman, Detective Hayes. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same last name as the man who once tried to intimidate me. "Mrs. Morales," Monroe began, "thank you for coming. We've reviewed the Clara Jennings footage and the data from your husband's laptop. Now we need to understand how they hid the money trail." I reached into my bag and set L.J. Legacy on the table. "It's all here." Monroe flipped through the pages. Lorraine's handwriting was neat, slanted, almost surgical. Each line was a formula, a perfect blueprint of greed. Phase 1, divert healthcare funds into consulting fees. Phase 2, channel them into LJ Charitable Trust, a fake nonprofit. Phase 3, clean the flow through stock purchases under the victims' names. "It's a closed-loop system," I said quietly. "An inverted structure of truth. On paper it looks like charity. Underneath, it's theft." Monroe nodded. "Mrs. Morales, do you recognize this red ink note at the bottom?" I leaned forward. The words read, "If K fails, activate Phase 2. I froze. K must be Keen, their lawyer. "We thought so too," Monroe said, "but we also found another account under the name Karen Hale, former assistant to Lorraine. She vanished in 2019. The room thickened. Priya spoke softly. "If Lorraine used people like Clara and Karen as name holders, This isn't domestic fraud. It's an entire network. Monroe set his pen down and looked at me. Mrs. Morales, there's a faster way to end this. We'd like you to assist in Operation Justice. What would I need to do? We want you to call your ex-husband, pretend you're willing to negotiate. He'll come in, and he'll bring whatever device he's still hiding. You're asking me to be bait. No, he said evenly. You'll be the hook, but you won't be alone. We'll monitor everything through a secure line. I was silent for a moment. Part of me trembled, the part that once loved, once flinched in humiliation before a crowd. But the other part, the part sitting here, had learned how to turn humiliation into a weapon. I'll do it, I said, but I want one thing. Every victim, every name in this book, they get justice. Monroe nodded. That's exactly why we need you. By noon, they set up a secure operations room. Frosted glass, quiet hum of servers. I sat at a small desk, phone wired for two-way recording. Priya rested a hand on my shoulder, a pulse of courage. I dialed Victor. 3 rings. Elena? Yes, we need to talk. I don't want any trouble. The FBI took everything. Not everything, I said evenly. There are files your mother never transferred. If you want to save her, we can still make a deal. A sharp inhale. Where are you? The old apartment. I'll come. Bring the black hard drive from your safe. I need to see it first. Monroe gestured to the tech team. They activated GPS tracking. A red dot began to move across the map. He's coming, Priya whispered. Remember, I said, liars always assume everyone else is lying too. Dot. By late afternoon, the sky turned violet gray. Victor walked in, worn, but still carrying that arrogant gleam. You really want to help my mother? I just want it to end. He placed the hard drive on the table. Everything's in here. If you give it to the FBI, we both go down. But if we negotiate, I can buy your silence. Silence isn't on the market anymore, Victor. I looked straight into his eyes. A faint red blink from the hidden camera glowed in his pupils. He realized. Too late. The door burst open. 2 agents swept in. Victor Morales, you're under arrest for federal fraud and obstruction of justice. He stepped back, eyes wide. Elena, you set me up? No, Victor. You set yourself up. Monroe entered from behind the glass wall. This drive contains the full LJ insurance records from 2015 to 2021. Mrs. Morales, you just dismantled a decade-long operation. When the room emptied, I sat alone. Outside, rain began to fall. Soft, steady, rhythmic, like the closing lines of an old chapter. Priya turned to me with a tired smile. You did it. Operation Justice is complete. No, Priya, I said quietly. It's just beginning. Because Clara and Karen deserve their day in court. Monroe returned, holding a new folder. We're expanding the case to Florida. Mrs. Morales, records show a company there tied to Lorraine using your name as a shareholder. I looked up. You're saying she laundered money under my identity? Exactly. We think she used your inheritance account in Miami. I clenched my fist. Then we go to Miami. Monroe nodded. Be ready. Phase 2 just activated. That night, I returned to the empty apartment. The lights from the lake danced across the walls, cold but strangely peaceful. On the table sat my cold coffee and the sealed LJ Legacy notebook. I unlocked my phone. The headlines glowed. FBI dismantles fraud ring linked to LJ Insurance. 2 arrested. Federal investigators seek additional victims. I exhaled slowly. This story began as a betrayal at an anniversary dinner. Now, it was a federal justice operation. Outside, the rain had stopped. The lake glimmered under the city lights. In my head, I heard Priya's voice. You just survived a system built on lies. No, I thought. I didn't just survive it. I documented the structure of the truth. Morning in Miami Beach was blinding. Sunlight shattered on the ocean like a million pieces of broken glass. But inside me, that light brought no warmth. Only the reminder that every crime can happen in broad daylight if it's hidden cleverly enough. On the drive from the airport, I stared through the car window. This city used to be the ending of a dream, an inherited condo, a new life, a clean start. Now it was a battlefield. Agent Monroe sat beside me, laptop open, voice low and steady. We've been tracking the Sunfield Holdings account. The legal owner is Elena Morales, but the person signing the transactions is Lorraine Davis. So she used my name to launder money. Exactly. You're the perfect cover. Ex-wife, no official ties to the company. But we're going to flip it. This time, you'll be the one who signs. I turned to him. You want me to sign to trap them? No. I want you to sign the truth. My Miami Beach condo was on the 15th floor facing the open sea. Everything was as it had been the day I got the inheritance letter. White, clean, still. Monroe set a small recorder on the table and tethered it to his laptop. Simple plan. Lorraine thinks you'll agree to legitimize the Sunfield Fund. She'll come with her lawyer keen to re-execute the transfer. The moment they put pen to paper, everything's on camera. Then the FBI comes in. I have one question, I said. What if they bring someone else? We'll handle it. But if you want to back out, there's still time. I smiled and shook my head. No. I've been waiting for this moment for 25 years. 1742. Waves hammered the glass. The sun slid down, pouring gold along the living room wall. I sat at the table. In front of me, the decoy contract the FBI had prepared. Blue ink. 2 signature lines waiting, Lorraine Davis and Randall Keene. The doorbell rang. I drew a long breath. From the side room, where the cameras hid, Monroe gave a nod. The door opened. Lorraine walked in, white coat, dark glasses, that glacial gait. Behind her, Randall Keene, the man who'd tried to cow me by letter. Elena, she said softly, you finally understand who wins. No one wins, Mother. We've simply reached reconciliation of accounts. Keene set his briefcase down, voice smug. This is the asset amendment. Once we sign, everything returns to lawful order. Mrs. Davis and your ex-husband won't pursue litigation. Really? I asked. I thought he was sitting in Cook County. Keene gave a thin smile. There are always paths, if you know how to talk. Lorraine removed her glasses and sat. Sign, Elena. And this time, do the right thing. For all of us. I looked at the pen on the table. Black ink. Mont Blanc. Her wedding gift to me 25 years ago. Too perfect a symbol. I picked it up and wrote my name slowly. Elena Morales. Then slid the document to Lorraine. Your turn. She bent over the page. I heard the nib touch paper small as a clock tick, but in my ear it sounded like a bolt sliding home. 1 second. 2. As the pen reached the last line, Monroe stepped out. FBI. Put the pen down. Everything moved like slow motion. Keene sprang up, but 2 agents were already through the back door. One pinned his arms, the other pulled Lorraine from the chair. The pen rolled across the white rug, trailing a black scar like a wound. Lorraine Davis, Monroe said, crisp as steel. You are under arrest for federal fraud, international money laundering, and identity fraud. Randall Keene, you are charged with conspiracy and falsification of financial documents. Lorraine thrashed. You have no right! Monroe raised the warrant. This is the right of the law, Mrs. Davis. Keene stared at me, hatred and panic tangled in his eyes. "You set us up." "No, I just shone light where you kept your shadows." The cuffs snapped shut, 2 dry clicks. Lorraine looked back at me one last time, eyes full of fury and naked fear. "You have no idea what you've touched." "That's fine," I said, "because you just touched handcuffs." After they were taken out, Monroe broke down the gear and sank into the chair beside me. "You all right?" "I am, just a little hollow." "It's common," he said. "Anyone who walks through the truth feels lighter and emptier." I nodded. "Agent Monroe, do you ever wonder why they do it?" "Because they think they can engineer the structure. But truth has its own weight." I turned toward the glass. The sun was gone, leaving a long red seam over the water. Below, an FBI patrol light winked like a moving star. A cold, quiet peace threaded through my chest. That night, I stayed in the condo, alone. No Lorraine, no Victor. No silhouette loitering at the door, only the tide. And a manila envelope Monroe had left on the table. I opened it. Inside was a copy of the note from LJ Legacy. "If K fails, activate Phase 2. Underneath, Monroe had handwritten, "Phase 2 terminated, justice balanced." I laughed soft, surprised. For the first time in years, someone spoke my language, the language of accounting and truth. I stepped onto the balcony. Miami's night glittered. Salt and music drifted up from the beach bars. I closed my eyes and listened to the surf. The bell in my head rang again. 25 years of marriage, 1 night of humiliation, 7 days to invert the entire structure. It ended here, in this room, not with a divorce decree, but with an arrest warrant. I didn't feel triumphant. I wasn't angry. I felt still, because truth at last had its receipt. The next morning, I left Miami on an early flight. On a cafe table at the airport, a newspaper showed Lorraine and Keene in cuffs. Bold headline: "Mother-son fraud ring dismantled after 10-year scheme." Subhead: "Whistleblower accountant exposes multi-million-dollar insurance scam." Below, in small type, Elena Morales declined to comment. I folded the paper and smiled. I didn't need to comment. The truth had spoken for itself. 3 months after the Miami arrests, I returned to Chicago. The city greeted me with cold wind, but this time I wasn't afraid. Every breath I took was proof. I was still here, still free, still myself. In the old apartment, the walls were still white, the chair still worn, but the silence now belonged to me alone. On the table sat a fresh stack of papers waiting for my signature, the founding documents of the Truth Ledger Foundation. The name was mine, deliberate, because after everything I had learned one thing. Truth also needs its own accounting system to survive. Priya arrived, carrying coffee and a tired but radiant smile. I still can't believe it's really over. It's not over, Priya. It's just a new period in the ledger. When one chapter closes, another begins. She glanced at the blueprint spread across the table. A logo shaped like a bird, its wings made of chart lines. The Truth Ledger. Support fund for financial victims and women trapped by fraudulent contracts. Sounds technical, I said, but that's what makes it honest. We can't fix what we don't record. Priya chuckled softly. You talk like a chief accountant of justice. That's exactly the title I want. A week later, I was invited to the federal courthouse for the final sentencing of United States versus Davis and Keene. The courtroom was bright and silent. Lorraine and Keene sat to the left, handcuffs removed, but still under guard. Monroe sat in the back row. I took the front seat, saying nothing. The judge read the verdict. Defendant Lorraine Davis, guilty of money laundering, federal fraud, and identity forgery. Sentence, 25 years in prison. Defendant Randall Keene, guilty of conspiracy and bribery. Sentence, 18 years. No applause, no cheering, just the sharp echo of the gavel, a sound that sealed the last door of a dynasty built on deceit. Lorraine turned toward me. The arrogance was gone, so was the power. Only exhaustion remained, blurred by age and regret. I felt no hatred, only pity. That afternoon, I went to Lake Michigan. The water rippled, reflecting a spring sky. From my bag, I pulled out a small silver USB, the final video of Clara Jennings. Her voice played, fragile but steady. If you're watching this, I'm gone. But don't let them erase the records. Every balance, every transaction tells the truth. Trust the structure, not the person. I watched the light dance across the lake and whispered, I did, Clara. And you were right. Then I threw the USB into the water, not to destroy it, but to return the truth to where it belonged, a place no one could counterfeit again. 2 months later, the Truth Ledger Foundation officially opened its doors. The launch was modest, a red brick building in River North, a steel plaque that read, Truth has structure. Priya led the legal division, Monroe became investigative advisor, and I, founding director, refused the label hero. In that bright room, I met other women, one who lost her home to a forged signature, another whose retirement vanished into fake investments. I listened, taking notes like entries in a moral balance sheet. Every story had its own equation, loss and courage. I realized justice doesn't live only in courtrooms. It lives in the voices that refuse silence. One evening, after work, a letter arrived. No name, just a single page, the handwriting trembling. Thank you, Mrs. Morales. I am Clara Jennings. I'm alive. They never found me. Because of you, I can tell the truth. I sat for minutes, unmoving, tears falling before I noticed them. In that moment, I knew. Every risk, every sleepless night, every danger was worth it. Because truth never dies. It only waits for someone brave enough to reopen the file. A year later, I returned to Miami to sign the contract for the foundation's second branch. The old condo had been sold to a young couple. I stopped by the balcony, looking out at the glittering sea. Nothing tied me there anymore, only memory and peace. The phone rang. Monroe. Elena, we just closed the last case from the LJ files. Nearly 10 million recovered. All of it's going to the foundation. You see, I said, everything eventually balances. Balances, but never easily. No, but permanently. I hung up and watched the sun sink into the ocean. The breeze lifted my hair. Salt and citrus filled the air. A chapter closed, not with an ending, but with equilibrium. That night, I recorded the final entry of the truth file. If you're hearing this, I said calmly, remember, justice doesn't begin in court. It begins in the heart of whoever dares to ask a question. It took me 25 years to learn this. Silence feeds liars, but truth, even painful truth, is the only light that saves us. I lifted my head, looked straight into the camera, and smiled. My name is Elena Morales, and this is my story. Did you like my story? Tell me which city you're watching from, and what truth you've discovered in your own life. If this story touched you, leave a comment, like, and subscribe. Your support keeps these voices alive.